Welcome to PCMC Pop Culture Man Children. I'm your host, Mike Mangiano. I'm joined today once again by my good friend and yours, Mr. Peter Marsh from the northern marshes of the great plains of Scotland, or the highlands of Scotland.
Yes. Man, we're just coming right out the gate hot, aren't we?
Yes. Peter, how are you doing?
I'm great. We just recorded our review of Masters of the Universe 2026, and I think that was maybe our best recording we've done.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about today's topic. What we're talking about today is redemption arcs. Best and worst redemption arcs. So if you don't know what a redemption arc is, you probably do if you don't know the term. A redemption arc is when in a film or a TV show or or a book or whatever, you have a character that is a villainous character, or at least a character that has very bad traits, and then through usually a series, the character starts to make better choices and eventually becomes a good guy. And when a redemption arc is done properly and the work is put in and it's done in a way that you can believe it, it could be extremely satisfying for audiences, especially if it's like a bad guy that you love and then they start becoming good. You're like, oh, they're becoming good now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's a good definition?
Yeah, I think it's a good definition. Yeah. And it can be, like you said, just one of the most exciting parts of the story, especially like genre fiction, like fantasy and science fiction. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about best and worst. We both have a list of 6. We have 3 best and 3 worst. I guess before we get into, we'll start with best and then do worst, because worst is always more fun to talk about. But let's talk about how we think of worst. For me, I define worst as they were either poorly executed, where it was too rushed, or it felt like they were missing steps.
Yep.
Or maybe the character was maybe too bad to begin with, and to redeem them isn't right in a way. Or in one of my cases, the character was just much more interesting, villainous, and then after the redemption arc is just less interesting.
Yes.
So unless are there any other definitions that maybe you could add to that for why you think a redemption arc can not work?
No, but it's funny because I really struggled to come up with my worst list. It was a piece of cake to come up with my best list. I was like, oh yeah, this, right?
Okay, yeah.
But then for my worst list, I had 2 what I consider to be great examples, and I really could not come up with a third. And I feel like this maybe shows how limiting sometimes doing like a Google search can be.
Yeah.
And also maybe like how badly my mind has been affected by watching TikTok and looking up things on Google. Because I know there's many examples of villains turning into heroes, especially at the last minute, that are bad examples.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of any, even I'm like, I know I've seen this a bunch of times. Like, what I think is the worst type of villain redemption arc is when the villain becomes a good guy at the very end, and really the only reason why is just because the story needs to end. Like they just like and this happens a lot, I feel like, in comedies and in like poorly made kids movies.
Yeah.
Where like the villain will just flip and there's no reason. It's just basically like, oh, we need to resolve this so they become good. And I couldn't think of a good third until like last night.
Yeah, I also had a harder time with the worst, but I think it's also categorically it's because it's hard to find a bad definition of something because it's not defining it. You know what I mean? Like when you think of good redemption arcs, they pop in your head, but then you have to go, okay, what? Because bad redemption arcs really aren't redemption arcs, right? They're cop-outs or they're very quick plot changes or whatever. I would say right off the bat, and this is a bit of a tease, I think one of my choices for bad redemption arcs is going to be a extremely hot take and will be controversial, and I'm very excited to drop it on you. I should say that, yeah.
I think that we both have the same choice, and I'm wondering if you have yours as your number 1, and I'm going to beat you to the punch with my number 2.
We'll see. I should say that I have a shitty memory, so I did look up a lot of lists, and I found a nice Reddit thread about arcs, and And even for the ones that I wanted to do, I had to like rewatch videos on YouTube to remind myself of all the beats of the arcs.
Yep.
So, I want to give a shout out to, you know, all the material online and the fan communities that helped me build this stuff. Although I want to make clear, like, I didn't take anybody's ideas. Like, these are all things I was just looking for reminders of shit I've already seen and be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's a good one. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Me too.
So I think we should go back and forth. You do one, I do one, you do one, I do one, and let's start with our good ones and then move to the bad ones.
Let's fucking do it. Should I knock out my honorable mentions or no?
You could do your honorable mentions before the third one, or at
Okay.
the end. Maybe we could do it.
Okay. All right. So we're going from third to one, right? Like number one is the best one. We're starting off with our third best, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do it. Okay. So this is my third, and I'm gonna say the T-800 from Terminator 1 and Terminator 2.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So that might be a hot take unto itself because those are not the same characters, right? The T-800 in the first Terminator is not the same T-800 in
Right.
the
But
second.
still, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it works thematically because, at least in the eye of the character that's consistent between the two movies, Sarah Connor, that character is redeemed in Sarah Connor's eyes
I
from
agree.
Terminator
No,
1
I,
to
I
Terminator
almost
2.
thought about this. This isn't on my list, but I thought about this.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, like I wholly understand that like it's not the same robot, right? But if you look at the course of the two films, there 1000% is like a redemption arc,
Oh yeah.
and like it's done so well. Like think about when Sarah Connor first sees the T-800 in Terminator 2, and she's in the mental hospital. She's like terrified of him, like backing away from him, screaming when she sees him, and
Yeah.
then by the end of the movie, she's like almost like reluctant to have him self terminate, which is like this noble thing that
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
machine does. Yeah.
Wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
Believe me, there's a ton of good redemption arcs. I have like four honorable mentions. So yeah, this one, it was hard making this into a list of three.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I think you and I probably both have a lot of like genre stuff.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like there's probably great redemption arcs and stuff that I don't watch. Like I bet there's great redemption arcs in soap operas.
Yep.
But I've never
Oh, yeah.
watched soap operas. But I bet like there's got to be great ones, you know?
Of course. What I did, Mike, was that I just basically kept it within my wheelhouse for like what you and I have discussed.
Yeah.
So like people that listen to your show all the time and like they're like, oh, that Peter Marsh guy, they'll be like, oh, of course he's talking about blah 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 because he always talks about blah blah blah. So you'll see.
All right. All right. So my third, these are the good ones, is Katra from, we're back in Masters Universe. Katra from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Katra is a villain. She's like a cat person. Her and Adora She-Ra are raised together by a sort of wicked, by Shadow Weaver, who's this witch who's like their abusive mother figure. And when Adora finds the sword and becomes She-Ra, she leaves and joins the good guys, which makes Katra feel abandoned. And Katra's basically the main villain throughout the show, but every time they have an encounter, it's extremely intense. And the show, I think, is very, very emotionally mature. And
Yes.
it really goes with like the idea of like hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, Katra, she learned. So her character is a very vulnerable character, and in the beginning, her vulnerability makes her very violent and angry. She turns that vulnerability into rage, but in the end, she sees it more as a strength in itself. And I think this is a thing you see with good redemption arcs, which is in a bad redemption arc, the character will fundamentally change, but in a good redemption arc, the thing that drives them may still be the thing that's driving them, but now in a different, more healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think looking at my list, I think the other two good ones are similar. It's just how they were expressing it was wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
catchy.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of our examples are going to be animation examples because I think that's just the idea of a bad guy turning good is something that people want to instill in children, like giving a
Oh yeah.
character a second chance to like turn it around. And that's a really excellent point you made about how it's like they still have the same motivations, but it's like they turn it in a positive way. I really like that a lot. Um, I love that example of Catra. She was probably going to be on my list, but I was like, oh, Mike's absolutely going to mention her. But like aesthetically, she's such a cool looking character. She's so much better looking in Princesses of Power versus the original version
Yeah,
of Catra from the 80s. And her voice actor is great. Like there's this like romantic tension between Catra
yeah,
and She-Ra too.
yeah.
Yeah, it's an excellent show, and that's a really great
Yeah,
first
they
choice.
end up together in the end.
Yeah,
Something else I noticed while I was doing this list, which I don't know if I ever noticed before, which is a lot of these characters are marked by a physical change or a design change. Like when Catra becomes good Catra, she's no longer wearing her, horde outfit, and she cuts her hair so she has shorter hair.
yeah,
And I think you see that a lot, like a physical change that
yeah.
marks the different era of the character.
Yes. My number two example and my number one example have that exact thing that you're saying.
All right, what's your number two?
Okay. This one should probably be my number one. He might be on your list too, but I'm gonna say Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, he is on my
So
list.
my second favorite Avatar: The Last Airbender character. I think a lot of people would do this. They would say Toph is their favorite character, then
Yeah,
Zuko. But Zuko's redemption, and especially like how Uncle Iroh plays into that redemption, it
yeah,
is just such a satisfying story arc, such a likable character. Um, my kids, when we rewatch Avatar, they don't really like the first season as much, and part of it is because of what you were just saying, where Zuko looks so different.
yeah, yeah,
He's got the shaved head, but the little top knot in the back. And by the end of the season, or end of the third season, he's like dreamy with his like longer hair
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah.
uh,
There's an absolute physical change in him.
yeah, yeah. Just like that's the whole point of his character, right? Is
Right.
redeeming himself. So I mean, he could have been my number one, but I just my number one. There's only one choice I have for that.
All right. Well, he's my number one, so I'll talk about him a little bit too now.
Yeah,
He's another person where his drive is still the same. Like he's the son of the Fire Lord, and the Fire Nation is like they're like the fascist rulers. Although it's like feudal, and he like speaks out of turn at like a meeting, and his father as a child challenges him to like a duel, which he doesn't want to do, and that's why he has a burn on his face. So the burn is like this physical scar of trauma, another childhood trauma, and he's really just going after the Avatar because he thinks if he captures and kills the Avatar, he'll regain his honor, and then he's in exile, and he'll be allowed back into the family and out of exile.
yeah,
And Uncle Iroh is interesting because he actually had a redemption arc that we never saw. Because when we see him, he's like this sweet, very wise uncle who like just wants to drink tea and be peaceful. But like people tell stories about him when he was younger as like this amazing warrior. And at some point that they don't really show, he put that all aside and became a good person.
yeah,
And he's like he goes on with Zuko on his exile, and he's like gently trying to guide him towards it. But then there are some moments where he's confrontational to Zuko. He's like, "Now's your choice to do something good." Like there's a moment where he's gonna kill Appa, the flying bison, and he's like,
yeah,
"Do what you want to do, the right thing." And then there's a really interesting thing where Zuko gets sick when he starts to be good, and Iroh's like, "You're sick because you're fighting yourself inside your body. This will be a painful change, but you're changing for the better." And it's so interesting to see it as like a physical change too. It's so good. He's such a good bad guy and then such a good guy, but his motivations don't change. He still is, he goes from wanting his abusive father's love to wanting to defeat his father, but to let the Avatar do it because it's the Avatar's fate to do it.
yeah. And I mean, this whole story takes over the course over 3 seasons. It's not like by the beginning of the third season he's a good guy. He does join Team Avatar by the third season, but on rewatch, I'm like, oh, he doesn't really join until like pretty late in the third season, you know?
Good, I think
And
a good redemption arc. There are little moments where they choose good instead of bad, and those start to add up.
that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And you have to bring up the fact that like there's a part where he in the first season he wears a mask and he goes to like rescue the Avatar from some other Fire Lord people, mainly because he wants to capture him for himself. But he kind of teams up with Aang,
Yeah.
and there's this great scene where they're like together in the woods, and Aang says this line of like, maybe like in another life we could have been friends.
Yeah.
And then like Zuko just shoots fire at him at that point. So he's not ready at that point to become good. But like you said, they're kind of like laying the foundation. They're having those little moments first.
In some ways, he's similar to one of the worst people on my list.
Yeah.
But done in a much better way.
Yeah, I can tell who that one of that worst people is going to be on your list.
Absolutely, of course.
But I'm glad that you brought up Uncle Iroh, because that's a trope unto itself, and I think that's when you have like this good character that was bad in the past, and it's more exciting when you haven't seen them bad, you've only known them as good, but then they might show like a hint of that bad side, like because there's characters like from Buffy that I thought could have gone on this list, but like it didn't follow the same kind of formula.
Yeah.
Like you have Giles, who was like the Ripper when he was younger.
Rest
and
in
like
peace.
He's magic. Right. Yeah.
He just
exactly.
passed away.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, it's cool that you get like little hints at that Ripper persona in this, and then Angel, of course, and Spike too. Where like the Spike has his own redemption arc, but I didn't pick him, and then Angel kind of was redeemed before the show, so it's cool when you have a good character and you get to see little flashes of their evil side they used to have.
Yeah. All right, so who's your number one on your good list?
Well, you got to do your number two.
Oh, do I? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yes, I do have to do my number two. Spike from Buffy, played by James Marsters. So Spike comes into season 2 as as the big bad of that season, along with Drusilla. So they have this like toxic, they're like Sid and Nancy vampires. And I think his redemption arc is similar to Angel's, but done in a much better way, because he starts as like a true villain. And then at one point, something really interesting happens, which is like there's this government agency in the storyline, and they kidnap Spike and put a chip in his head. So when he tries to be violent towards people, he can't. It hurts him. So he's still a bad, and that's a very fun era of the character, because he's still a bad guy, but he's on this leash, so they no longer are afraid of him, because he literally can't hurt them, even though he wants to. And, he will still like insult them, but he can't kill them if he wants to. And that's a really interesting, like, he's not good yet. He's still bad, but it's like a step towards redemption of like, okay, now he can't do bad things, even though he'd like to.
Yeah.
And there's one moment where he's going to kill Buffy, and he goes to her house to kill her. And he has like a gun. He's going to like shoot her. But then he sees she's like crying, and he's like, oh, what's wrong? Can I help? And he just sits next to her and like helps her. And like what's interesting about him is there's something toxic about it. Like, it's not, his redemption arc is not so pure. It's, I think, first fueled by his love of Buffy and wanting her to love him back, which never happens, which is good, because he crosses some lines that I think you can't get forgiven for. Like, he forces himself on her. There's a very, very intense sexual assault scene where he's like, you love me, admit that you love me, and he's like on top of her, and then she like kicks him off. But it's very intense. It's like, it's almost a rape scene.
Yeah.
And he moves on from that, and that's what helps him make his next step in his redemption, but he's never forgiven for it, which is good.
Yes.
And his next step is he finds a way to regain his soul, because in the lore of Buffy, vampires lose their soul. So he regains his soul to be a better person for Buffy, but then he kind of loses his mind, because all of a sudden all of the pain and empathy that he hasn't had for hundreds of years come back, and he kind of like goes crazy. And then at the very end, in the last episode of Buffy, he sacrifices himself to save the world. And she says, I love you. And then he goes, no, you don't, but thank you for saying it. And then he dies. And then he comes back in Angel, but never mind that. So I think it's a really interesting redemption, because he does get redeemed. His motivations aren't the purest, and he does some bad things that you can't really come back from. But he gets to a point where he knows that he can't be forgiven, but he still wants to be good.
Yes. I mean, there's so many interesting details in Spike's story. I mean, Buffy was such an important show
Oh yeah.
for the genre and then just for TV in general. And like what I like about Spike and about Angel is that you get flashbacks to who they were before vampires. Like what's interesting about vampirism is that a person could be a good person prior to becoming a vampire, but then they become evil because like they lose their soul, right?
Yeah.
And Angel and Spike are both losers before they become vampires. So like one of the things that's about good with a redemption arc is if they show a character you know like prior to them becoming evil and
Yeah.
you see the reason why they become evil. Like one thing that's been bad about our culture in general is that they'll tell these stories about villains that are like true black-hearted villains, but then they'll be like, but look at their traumatic backstory. But then when you watch their the movie that they're in initially or read their story, it's like they don't redeem themselves at the end. So you have this like tragic backstory, but then they're just a villain and they die. It works when you have them as a villain first, then you maybe get like a flashback to their childhood and you understand why they are the way they are, and then
Yeah.
they redeem themselves afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, thinking of the word redemption, technically Spike is a redemption arc, but it's not true redemption, right? It's really an arc towards being good. He's not truly redeemed because he was been a vampire for 200 years. He's murdered lots of people,
Right.
but he becomes good.
Yeah.
And it's more interesting than Angel because Angel is treated like this great hero. But like I don't know. Angel, there's also a lot of Lestat and Louis in Angel and Spike.
Right.
So you know that's there too.
Yeah. And even those characters have redemption arcs too, but
Yeah.
that's more complicated. I didn't bring them up. But yeah, I know, like, believe me, I was gonna go with Spike too, but I honestly I didn't actually finish Buffy. I got to that fourth season and I stopped watching it when it was still on TV, and I've never gone back to streaming and watched the whole thing. But
You
a
got to
lot of
get
people are,
past four. Four is the worst season, bar none.
yeah.
Bar none. It's terrible. But then five, it gets good again.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and like a lot of people that are very close to me are like huge Buffy fans, so I'll probably have to go back and see Spike's whole arc.
Yeah. All right. What's your number one? Or do you want to say honorable mentions for your good list?
um. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Honorable mentions. I got some good ones here. I'll try to go through them pretty quickly. So there's countless comic book characters I could bring up that have redemption arcs, right? Villains. But I need to point out that the second version of the Avengers in the '60s, the first version of the team is very similar to what we see in the movie The Avengers, but the second version of the team is made up of all supervillains and then Captain America. And people, I think, don't realize that these characters were villains first because they've been heroes for so long.
Uh huh.
But Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye were all villains first in the
Ah.
like
Is
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were originally Magneto's kids, and they were in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
mm,
Um, and then Hawkeye, like a lot of people don't know this, but like Hawkeye was a villain first, and then he became a good guy too. And so it's really bizarre to have in the '60s like Captain America and this team with villains, but they're all good guys by the time they
interesting.
become the Avengers. Then this part, I mean, maybe if Brian listens to this episode, he'll really enjoy this part. I don't know how much your listeners will, but there was a Transformers cartoon called Beast Wars
Uh huh.
in the '90s, and it's a fucking excellent cartoon. It's kind of the reason why Transformers is still relevant now. But there's a character called Dinobot who turns into a Velociraptor, and he's on the Predacons, which are like the Decepticons in that. And he's a bad guy at first, and very quickly turns sides in the beginning of the first season. He has this death in the final season
Uh huh.
that is like it's one of the best fucking Transformers things ever. It's this amazing episode of like an animated show. His the way he goes out as a hero is like so epic. And then
Nice.
last but not least, so that I can stop talking so much, um, I've mentioned on the show how I love this one Transformers comic called More Than Meets the Eye
Mhm.
from IDW, and it eventually spun off into a comic called Lost Light. And in that comic, they actually make Megatron an Autobot. And I know I'm probably putting you to sleep, and your viewers are like, "What is he even talking about?"
No, it's fine.
Like the guy James Roberts who wrote this comic, he added this like incredible depth to Transformers. It was like watching Andor, but like reading it as a Transformers comic. It was
Interesting.
just like so deep for a comic about toys.
I love that.
And like you see Megatron's like true like grappling with the fact that he's killed millions of Transformers, like just dealing with that weight. It's like a true redemption because he's like dealing with the consequences of his actions.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
interesting that that's an honorable mention and not on your list.
I know. It's just it's like too obscure for it to be
I mean,
my main.
that's what PCMC is about.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, my number one though, Mike, is gonna just like halt our conversation completely because I don't think that you've watched Dragon Ball Z, right?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Okay, so I can make this brief then too,
No, you
but
don't have to make it brief. The audience has seen it or heard it.
okay.
Yeah.
So then there's probably a lot of people that would agree with me, but like my number one always had to be Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z.
All right. Tell me.
So like we find out that Goku is from another planet. The planet's actually called Vegeta, and he's a Saiyan. It's very similar to like Superman and Krypton, and like Invincible and the Viltrumites and stuff. Um, but basically, he's from this like warrior race that goes around conquering other planets,
Hmm.
and the leader of that planet, which has been destroyed as well, his name is Vegeta, and he's Prince Vegeta.
Uh-huh.
Like when you meet him in the first season of Dragon Ball Z, he's just this ruthless, super powerful villain. He's so scary, and you just think he's so cool in that first season. You're like, oh, look at this badass villain. And then over the course of Dragon Ball Z, which is like every season has dozens of episodes,
Yeah.
like I don't know, maybe like 70 episodes, like he slowly but steadily becomes a good guy. And Vegeta, you could make the argument that Dragon Ball Z is about Vegeta versus Goku, but he's my favorite character in Dragon Ball Z. And like, just to see him go from this like super scary, cool villain to this kind of reluctant hero.
Uh-huh.
And he's like fully incorporated into the good guy side where he has like his own kids with like one of Goku's best friends. And he's he's married and he's living the family life, but he's still, you could tell, like not a wholly cheesy good guy. Like I just like people that listen to your show that love Dragon Ball Z are going to be like, "Yep, he's right."
I didn't know that you were a Dragon Ball Z fan. Have you kept up with all the various versions and stuff?
Not all of them, but like the newest version is Dragon Ball Super,
Uh-huh.
and I've been watching that. I think it's excellent. I mean, there's a version of Dragon Ball that you can watch. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Dragon Ball Kai,
Uh-huh.
where they sort of trim the episodes to make it easier to watch. I guess maybe for like this newest generation. And if you ever want to watch it, if that's on Hulu, you can check it out.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I've thought about it, but I kind of was like, I don't know where to start. It's one of those things that it's so much of it.
Yeah, I think you could just watch Dragon Ball Kai, and I think Dragon Ball Z might even be available on Hulu. And there's a lot of it too, but it was just like one of my favorite things like growing up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let me give you my honorable mentions for good redemption arcs. Peacemaker, his whole show is sort of a redemption arc. Godzilla during the Showa era, because he goes from this monster to like now he's like when you get to like the later end of the Showa era, he's literally like a friend to the children. He's like Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last one, which I almost put on my list, but I felt I couldn't because I haven't finished the series yet, is Endeavor from My Hero Academia.
Oh, okay.
Who he's very similar to the Fire Lord, and his son is very similar to Zuko, but he's like a true piece of shit. He's a good guy superhero in My Hero Academia, but in his personal life he's horrible. He's abusive and he's just terrible. And then the main good guy kind of goes away and he becomes the number one person, and he kind of like goes on a redemption arc and becomes like the fact that you hate him in the beginning and then by the end you're rooting for him is just so interesting. That's one of the really interesting things about redemption arcs when you find yourself like excited and rooting for someone that you hated.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I've never watched My Hero Academia, so
Oh,
I mean maybe I should check it out and then you could check out Dragon Ball Z.
I think it's the best superhero thing ever made.
Wow. Okay.
Ever
Damn.
made.
Wow.
Absolutely. It's absolutely worth your time.
One thing I didn't mention, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention with my honorable mentions is like so many villains from My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Friendship is Magic. Like there's so many, like that whole show is about making the bad guys become good guys.
Yes, yes. Right. And like you said with children's stuff,
Yeah.
they want to make that an option. Yeah.
Like one of the best examples is like Discord,
Yeah.
who's like he's played by Q, like John Delancey from
Yeah.
Star Trek, and he becomes like really good friends with Fluttershy. That's like one of those situations where you like are excited about the villain, even though he was an asshole the first time you saw him around.
There's something people were very drawn to redemption arcs because there's just something very exciting about it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something exciting about change that you can change.
Well, I think that like villains are just often more exciting and compelling than heroes. So for them to like change sides and then you feel like, oh, he's on our side now. It's just exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And so anyway, my number one was Zuko. We talked about it, but it's interesting that Zuko has kind of become like the shorthand for best redemption arc. I feel people will always compare other redemption arcs to Zuko.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe one of the things you see there is that it's planned, right? Some redemption arcs, it's just a choice in an ongoing series. Whereas I think, from the beginning, the creators of Avatar knew where Zuko was going eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's redemption arcs in TV shows in general too, especially like long running TV shows. But a lot of times it might be because they've run out of ideas and they're like, let's make this guy good now.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, now let's get to the worst list.
Okay. So like I said, this was like very challenging, and this is probably gonna be spoilers for my choices, but all three of my choices are from the same universe. And you can probably guess what universe it is. But let's start with my number 3. I went with Osha and May from The Acolyte.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
I don't remember the characters' names from The Acolyte.
I didn't have a number 3 for a really long time. And then I saw like a thumbnail that had Osha when she turns evil, which that unto itself, people have a problem with how quickly she turns evil. Right. But I think her sister turning good is a great example of just a character just for no reason becoming a good guy just all of a sudden. And there's actually like a term, unfortunately, like it's on my phone, we're recording on my phone, I'm in my car, but I think it's called like just turned good or just became good. And it's a term for villains that kind of become good for no reason.
Yes.
And I feel like May becoming good in The Acolyte is an example of that.
Yeah. Of my list, 2 out of 3 are from the Star Wars world. Okay.
Man, I really fucked you with my list because I feel like my lists are, I'm like giving away your answers before you do.
No, it's fine. It's inevitable. Because as much as Zuko is the benchmark for the best, one person who's probably on our list is also the benchmark for the worst.
Yes.
All right. So my number 3, which is not from Star Wars, is Missy from Doctor Who. And let me explain why I think this doesn't work. It actually does work. It's a very good redemption arc, except they completely just drop it and everything earned is gone.
Yep.
So the Master is one of the villains from Doctor Who. It is another person like the Doctor who is a Time Lord, meaning, they regenerate into new bodies. So when they keep doing Doctor Who, they could keep doing Masters. So there's been a bunch of Masters, and there's not as many as there are Doctors, but the Master will always come back as like an evil version of the Doctor. And during the 12th Doctor's era, Peter Capaldi is the 12th Doctor, which is series 8, 9, and 10. you had a character named Missy, who at first they make it's a mystery as to who Missy is, but Missy is the master regenerated as a female, which was the first time that happened. That this is before the Doctor regenerates into a female body.
Yeah.
And she goes by Missy because it's mistress, like master and mistress. I guess they're going by like, I don't know, like English butler rules or whatever. So she's mistress, which is Missy.
Yeah.
So baked into the story is that they were childhood friends and that the Doctor always wanted the master to be good, and the master loves just torturing the Doctor, and the master is, done really terrible things, and they're the last two of their kind, so the Doctor wants him to be good so he won't be so alone.
Yes.
So with Missy, there starts to be a redemption arc. There's a short while in season, or I forget if it's series 8 or 9, where the Doctor like puts her in a vault, where he says like he almost treats it like rehab for being evil. He's like, she's going cold turkey on being evil, but she even says like, I could break out of a door. She says like, I once made a gun out of leaves. I could break out of a door. I'm here on purpose because I want to do the process. So little by little, she gets better. It's also played, I should say, by Michelle Gomez, who is a great actress, very, very funny, has a great poise to her. Her Missy kind of dressed as a sort of like, kind of like sexy Victorian, which I know doesn't make sense because Victorian era is all about repression, but kind of that's the kind of vibe she's going for. Or maybe she looks a little bit like a sexy Mary Poppins or something.
Yeah.
And I think she even had an umbrella like Mary Poppins. And at some point, she starts traveling with the Doctor. She's almost like a companion. And there's a good episode where the Doctor's like, let me find an adventure for her, and like she could like be me, and we'll see if she like can do the right thing. It's just really interesting because the Doctor's very invested in it, and she's invested in it, but she's still like kind of like Spike. She's still like a dick. Like even though she turns good, she's still an asshole. At the end of season 10, the John Sims, who played the last version of the Master before her, comes back, and he was like pure evil. And I forget what the threat is, but the Doctor like does his big impassioned speech to both versions of the Master, like, please help me, do something good for once, just stand with me, help me. And the Master just laughs at his face, and then Missy wants to do it, and then she hugs him, which is, remember, it's a version of herself. She hugs him and stabs him and fatally wounds him.
Oh wow.
And he's like, why did you do this? And she's like, because it's time. We have to be with the Doctor now. Like, this is always where we were going. Let's do it. Let's be good now. Let's try to be good now. And then he shoots her in the back.
Oh.
And then he says, well, this is where we were always going, killing each other, which is killing ourselves.
Wow.
And then she dies. And anyway, I don't have any problem with her dying either. That's fine. My problem is the next iteration of Doctor Who has Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. And then a new Master comes, and he's just pure evil again. There's no talk about the redemption. None of the emotional character work that happened with Missy is like, it didn't count for anything. And that's why it's on my worst list, because it feels squandered.
Yes. It's okay. So I watched the Peter Capaldi era, like the first series, but I dropped off after there. So I did not see anything that you described, but what you described sounded amazing. I kind of want to go check that out now.
Yeah, it's great.
But I think that's a problem with redemption arcs in like long form television, where there's just so many episodes, where there's decades of a show.
Yeah.
Or when there's comic books too, because like with comics, Stan Lee kind of had this edict where essentially like things would always return to status quo.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Yeah.
And like if we think about it like on a small scale, like The Simpsons, for example, everything kind of resets by the time an episode ends. So you're back to the status quo, right? But with like comic books or a show like Doctor Who that's been around for like 50 years or whatever, we kind of go back to the status quo eventually. It might
Yeah.
take time. So it sounds
Yeah.
like that's what happened there.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly right. Like, I don't know if because there was a new creator too when Jodie Whittaker came on, and I don't know if they specifically wanted to undo the Missy stuff. I think they just wanted to do the Master, like the classic Master, like of Arch Enemy. But
right.
as a fan, and I know Doctor Who with lore with Doctor Who is like it's important, but also very malleable because it is a 60+ year show.
Yeah.
Which was just canceled again, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm hearing conflicting things,
Yeah.
but still, as a fan, I felt like I liked the Misty storyline so much. They should have done something with it. I don't know. Even if you want to, even if you want to have the Master regenerate, have the next regeneration be more conflicted. I don't know. He kind of goes right back to like one-dimensional bad guy.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
my number 3.
Yeah. And I know that that leads to like one of the most controversial arcs in Doctor Who history too, is when he comes back, right?
Which one
The
you
the,
mean?
the something child,
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah, it does.
timeless child.
Timeless
Yeah.
Child, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should stop talking about this Doctor Who shit that apparently nobody cares about and talk about Star Wars, which is what you and that's like our bread and butter.
But no one cares about Star Wars either.
Oh
Mandalorian and
no!
Grogu made like $30. They
Yes.
literally took it out of IMAX screenings and gave them to Masters of the Universe.
What a world we live in.
I know,
Jesus.
right?
um,
But what's
well,
your
okay,
number 2?
okay, so here's what's gonna happen. My number two and my number one are probably your number two and your number one, but I'm not sure if they're in the same order. So I
Okay.
apologize for spoiling your answers. But my number two, the childhood version of me would take great umbrage of me saying this, but I put Darth Vader as my number two.
Okay.
Okay. Now, my choice for that is because I feel like yes, what he does is incredibly important. It's the resolution of the original trilogy saga, but considering everything that Anakin and Darth Vader did, like it's not enough of a redemption for like the evil that Darth Vader did. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying?
All right. So we can have a dialogue about these two because you're right. These are we do have the same number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And yes, I too feel like this is a hot take. But so okay, so your point is I think valid. But my point for why it doesn't work for me is because it's not truly seated. It just appears in Return of the Jedi. It's not, and people read it. People after, especially after watching the prequels, people read it in the past. People read it in things he does in Empire, but it's not. You're projecting that. It's not there. He is a villain in Part 1. He's a villain in Star Wars. He's an even eviler villain in Empire. The only thing he does in Empire, he doesn't do anything good, but he does want to betray the Emperor with Luke. That's it. But he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be good. And then all of a sudden in Jedi, he's conflicted, and there's that conversation before they go to see the Emperor where he is kind of like it's rushed. I know, like
Yeah.
pop culture, people think of this great redemption arc, but it's really not well executed and it's really not pre-planned. It really comes out of nowhere. And Darth Vader saving Luke from the Emperor is one of the big popcorn, oh my god, cheering moments in movie history. And I don't want to take that away, but I do want to say it's kind of not earned.
Okay. Good. Good. So it fails on multiple levels.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because like when we have these discussions, it's like I don't know how much credit we should give to like expanded universe stuff or like comic stuff or cartoon stuff. But like if we just go by the original trilogy, Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan, he cuts off Luke's hand. I mean, he doesn't like push the button on the Death Star, but he is supporting the Death Star. Like his goal is to make the Death Star functional and work, and it destroys a planet worth of people.
Yeah. Being a little blonde slave boy doesn't undo the genocide that he commits.
Yeah. Like, talking about sort of like it feeling rushed and like, things weren't like planned out or mapped out. Yeah, I know that like there's like adjustments they made after every Star Wars movie. Like in the first Star Wars movie, even though Leia like the way they've made it, they make it look like Leia and Padme look similar. You'd feel like if he saw Leia, he'd sort of have this moment. But in
Right.
the original New Hope, he's holding Leia's shoulders to make her watch her planet be destroyed.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right. Yeah. No,
I mean, that's the
it's
thing.
not planned out at all.
No,
I
no,
mean, also I mean, I've said this so many times, but in the original Star Wars, Darth Vader is taking orders from um
Barkin.
Tarkin. You know what I mean? Like it seems like in the second movie, all of a sudden he has a much more elevated role, and he's much more cruel as a villain. And then
Yeah,
in three, like notice like Luke says he's conflicted, but we just believe that because Luke says it. But we don't
right.
really see that. There's no moment you ever see, and if anything, it's selfish because like he seems to when he realizes that Leia exists and he has a daughter maybe it seems like people read that as a turning point for him, but even then that's right at the very end, and it's also
Yes.
selfish. Like
Oh yeah, of course.
he never says, oh, I shouldn't be Darth Vader, I shouldn't be a bad guy.
No.
And like I said, he's much more interesting as a bad guy. Anakin's
Yes.
not an interesting character in my point of view.
Yes. I mean, if for a second we are to take in like the comics and the novels and stuff too, like one of the things that Disney has done since they've taken over is they've made Darth Vader an even worse villain. To
Yes.
where like you read all these comics with him in it, and he's just like he's a Terminator. He's like just a
Yes.
like a motionless killing machine that kills thousands of characters just in the comics. You know?
Right. Right. I know absolutely. And I understand why they do that because he's interesting as a villain.
Right. Right.
But he's, there's no true redemption there.
Yeah.
It's just a turn. He just at the very end turns and saves Luke. That's it.
Yeah, and he does what he was going to do. I mean, it kind of goes back to your point about villains like having the same motivation but doing it for a better reason. Like he wanted to kill the Emperor when
Right.
he would feel bad. Yeah.
Right.
So he
Right.
does.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So was that your number one or was that your number two?
No, that was my number two.
Oh, okay, okay. So then number one is Kylo Ren.
Of course.
Okay, okay, good, good, good.
It's
Okay.
it's the opposite of Zuko. It's the worst. It's the
Yeah,
absolute worst.
yeah.
I think. Or before we get to that, actually, I have some dishonorable mentions.
Do it.
One is Jason Voorhees, specifically in Freddy vs. Jason. In that movie, out of nowhere, they want to make Freddy the villain and Jason, because Freddy was like a child molester, child killer, and Jason was a child who was neglected and stuff. But they're still both just mass murderers. The fact that movie tries to make Jason like a good guy is just insane.
Yes.
And then my second one, and this is actually a real person, George W. Bush. Just because Trump is the worst president ever doesn't make
Yeah.
Bush any better. Bush is still number two.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, that's an interesting thing. I think that brings up a point that we should mention, which is that often a lot of times the villain being redeemed or becoming a good guy or siding with the good guys is because a worse villain shows up.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And like it's much better when like the villain changes because of something internally versus something externally, like a worse villain.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are like so easy on W now, and I'm like, really? Do you remember this guy? Like, yes, he's much better than Trump, but that's what is that saying? Trump's the worst person. One of
Ever
the worst
existed
people ever.
besides Hitler? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that kind of segues into Kylo Ren kind of well,
Yes.
right? Because Kylo Ren, okay, so here's two things to talk about. I think that there's something to be said about not planning out a story and like sort of adapting as you're making the story. I know that's a natural thing to do, but when you kind of contradict where the story was going,
Right.
everyone can feel it. And like The Last Jedi is such a pivot from The Force Awakens, especially in terms of Kylo Ren, where it's like, by the end of The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren is on track to be the big bad of the whole trilogy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, the Emperor's back by Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So now there's a bigger villain to worry about than him.
Right, and he also in Rise of Skywalker, like he still feels like a grunt. Like he should be the ruler of the universe, right?
Right.
He should be
Right.
sitting on a throne, but it's like they completely undo everything in it. So yeah, the reason why he doesn't have a good through line is because the trilogy doesn't have a good through line. So
Right.
there's almost no chance at doing it. And then like the sort of inciting incident is Ray fatally wounds him, and then she uses her force healing power to save him and runs away. And somehow him being saved by her changes him, and then Leia dies, and I mean this is so bad, but like she does some kind of something force magic while she dies to make the ghost of Han speak to Kylo, and then he throws his fucking lightsaber away, and like, and that's the thing. It's just so stupid. And then the movie wants us to be rooting for him, and it's just like,
Yes.
dude, like, what? It's such whiplash. Like, it's completely unearned. It's so stupid.
Yeah. You and I often talk about the Rise of Skywalker when we record, and it's just because it's so it's like insulting, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, I've thought about the sequel trilogy a lot recently when I was making this list, and like I think about how they ended things for like every character. With Luke, it works and it's done well, but like Jesus Christ, Han and Leia, their death, and I mean, we're talking about their son, so
Right.
like it's all relevant. But like I was just thinking about how he just straight up kills Han Solo, and Adam Driver is such a good actor that like you you feel some kind of emotional reaction when he does it versus just like, I can't believe this asshole killed Han Solo. But the fact that like Han Solo gets stabbed and then falls into a planet and then the planet blows up,
Yeah.
it's just like they're just taking a shit on our love of Star Wars,
See,
you know?
I don't, I don't have that feeling. I'm fine with the way he died because I also have I always read it as like he knows he could die. Like when he says Ben and he confronts him, I feel like he's ready to die. So
Yeah,
I don't have any problem with that, especially if like it means something, which it does in The Last Jedi. Like
yeah,
Snoke has that line where he says like it tore you apart. You know, like I said, he's like a bad version of Zuko. He's conflicted like Zuko is. And Leia, I think we were just kind of we had no other choice because the actress died.
yeah.
But this is the worst. It just is the worst. And the thing is, no one bought it. No one buys it. You know what I mean?
No,
Like I don't know anybody who's like, oh, what a great redemption arc. If people do like the character, it's they liked when he was evil.
yes. I do think people get excited when they see him as a good guy, like especially when he does that sort of Han Solo shrug thing, when he's finding his own Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
But it's like what you just said about George Bush. It's sort of like and Anakin, kind of ironically, because like people look at the prequels in a different way now than we did when they first came out.
Yeah.
They look at them with nostalgia and think that they're much better than they are. And I think that they kind of do that with Kylo Ren, where they want it to be satisfying, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's just like we said, a good redemption arc is planned, it's seated, it has steps. It can't be one step. You need multiple steps towards the right, little steering of the ship towards the right direction. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, it
like
did feel inevitable because you kind of knew that that was something they always wanted to do. But if they were ever going to do it, they should have done it. I mean, I know it's a completely different filmmaker, but when he kills Snoke, that would have been a moment to do it.
yeah,
Because at least Ray was like trying to like deal, trying to speak to the good in him, and Ray had had these good feelings about Han, and he's so conflicted about having killed Han. Like when and it is such a great moment when he kills Snoke. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it. I like that he still ends up being evil, but that would have been the moment.
yes, I agree. But I know that with Kylo Ren, they almost wanted to do the inverse of Luke, where it was a character that was evil but felt the pull of the light side,
Yeah.
and that's a compelling thing. But then it's just completely abandoned to sort of for fan service,
Right.
by the third film.
Yeah, I
You
know.
know,
And that Han Solo shrug that you just mentioned, it all just falls so flat to me. because it's like I've seen nothing good from this character, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
supposed to be like totally rooting for him.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
his whole adult life, he's been a piece of shit. Like, where does he even have in him the swagger to be good? Like he has
Exactly,
a weird confidence in his goodness at the end, where it's like, where do you have all this confidence from?
exactly. And I don't think they show him. Does he fucking become one with the Force? I don't even remember. I only seen this movie once. Does he disappear when he dies?
No, he
Okay,
doesn't.
okay, okay. At least that's good. Jesus Christ. But um, like if we're gonna take into account the comics and stuff too, there's even a Kylo Ren comic, and it's just like he just fucking murders people in the comic too.
Yeah,
He's just like Darth Vader. It's like, you know, these horrible characters, and then all of a sudden they turn on the person that's worse than them. It's the same character. They turn on Palpatine,
yeah,
you
right.
know, and somehow we're supposed to be like, yeah, they were always good.
Yeah, I know. I know there's one moment in what do you call it? Last Jedi where he is going to fire on Leia's ship and you see him hesitate for a minute, but then he does it anyway.
No. Another
No?
TIE fighter does it, not his.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Well, if they
So
had done that moment in a different way, that could have been a moment seeding a change.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that would have been even worse if he had blown up Leia too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, yeah, Kylo Ren.
yeah,
What do you think? He came out recently. He said that him and Steven Soderbergh had this idea of like a Kylo Ren movie,
yeah,
and Disney turned them down. I think Disney should have let them. I mean, I don't even care if it retcons things. Like it's like the
yeah.
reason why I want that Ray movie, but it looks like that's never gonna happen now. Like,
No, there's always the potential to take a story that's gone wrong and write it, and that's one of the beauties of the expanded universe of Star Wars is that they were able to kind of strengthen the things that we had problems with in the prequels, and even
right,
some of the stuff in the original trilogy. Like in the hands of a capable creator, you could have patched up a lot of these issues that we're talking about. Even a mess like the Rise of Skywalker.
yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I think they just should have redone the sequel trilogy and included Matt Damon, and it just would have been way better.
Absolutely. Peter, thank you so much for being here. And I want to hear from the listeners your favorite redemption arcs, or your least favorite, the ones that you really don't like. Um, this isn't on my list, but one I kept coming across when I was researching was Nate from Ted Lasso, which I might
Oh,
agree with because it's like done off screen. Like he's all of a sudden just good again, but also his turn from good to bad is also abrupt. I don't know what they
uh-huh.
were doing with that character, but
Yeah,
you got
I,
it.
I think
It's yeah,
I dropped Ted Lasso. I think in the middle of the second season. I just wasn't liking it, but I've heard about that too.
yeah.
About that character's turn. Yeah,
When done correctly, a redemption arc can be a beautiful thing, but it has
yeah,
to be handled with care.
yes. The team, the storyteller or team of storytellers needs to know what they're doing first. They can't just like haphazardly throw it in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so if you don't know, Peter has two YouTube channels and two podcasts along with those channels. The Lassercast, which focuses on horror, and Comic Book Transformed, which focuses on the myriad adaptation of comic book material into movies and TV. So, what's going on? What are you covering on your podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, summer movie season is the best season for comic book movies. That's when we get the most of them, not necessarily the best of them. But Brian and I will be covering Supergirl when it comes out soon, like in a week or
Very
two.
excited for that movie. I'm very excited for that movie.
And then besides that, there's also the new Spider-Man Brand New Day that's coming out. There's Spider Noir on Apple. We just finished reviewing Invincible. We're gonna, yeah, I mean that's Comic Books Transform. Me and Brian. We're on YouTube. We're on wherever you can get a podcast episode. And then on the Lastercast, we recently interviewed David Weiner because he's like on our show all the time. He's been on your show. They're coming out with In Search of Darkness 70s, so we talked about that with him. We're going to be covering the Vampire Lestat, and we've covered Tales from the Crypt too, which is on Shudder as well. So
Yeah.
like there's fun stuff. You guys enjoyed hearing me talk about villain redemptions today, then go check out my 2 channels.
Let me ask you, what are your feelings on, briefly, what are your feelings on the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and what are your expectations for this fourth one?
um, I really don't like the second Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It
Okay.
ranks very low on my list of super Marvel movies, the MCU
Yeah.
ranking. I do like Spider-Man No Way Home because it just brings back all the original Spider-Man and their villains. But I've just never really been into that character. But I like his dynamic with Tony Stark, but I mean Tony Stark hasn't been around for 2 of those films now. So
Yeah.
as far as this movie goes, I think that it's a new director, and I have no idea what's going to happen in this movie. It looks like it has so many moving parts. I
Yeah.
don't know if it'll land, but I don't know. I think I guess we'll see. It could be a huge mess, or it could actually be the best Tom Holland Spider-Man
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way I feel. I liked the second one. I didn't like the third one. I loved the first one. The first one I think might be the best Spider-Man movie. And but the last one I felt like was such a mess. I put No Way Home along with like Wolverine and Deadpool and the second Doctor Strange movies is like these almost aren't even movies. They're
Uh,
just like cameo festivals.
yeah, yeah,
Um so but I don't know. I mean it looks good, but who can know?
yeah. Well, I
Um
mean, I guess we'll see. I think that's coming out in July, so you guys can
yeah,
check out my review on there.
it's ending the summer.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. This was Best and Worst Redemption Arcs. We end every episode by saying
Go bye bye.